Welcome back, comic book fans, to Comics Rediscovered. Today I have for you 3 CGC Signature Series books to unbox that are so unbelievable, they were almost seized by border security. Alright, so let's get this stuff out of the way. We've got the cardboard, we've got the billings. Here, came in 2 sets. So I sent in 3 books, figuring that now's the time. If you're going to get one of these legend signatures, it's time to get it now. With the news of a few of them passing recently, being sick, now's the time. If you love those silver, bronze, copper age comics, you love those artists or authors, it's time to get their signatures. So with Marv Wolfman, I sent down a few books. They just came back from CGC. I'm going to go through these one by one. We'll talk about the books and why they were almost confiscated by Canada Border Security. So, start this off. Unfortunately, I did see these grades already because they were almost confiscated. So what happened is I have a P.O. box just across the border. You know, from my house to across the border is about 40 minutes. And the difference in shipping, if I'm getting something from CGC or CBCS, if I ship it to Canada, the shipping is like 50 or 60 bucks. And if they ship it FedEx, FedEx then tries to add on extra charges after you've already received your things and you have to fight them for it. If I ship it to my P.O. box, it's dirt cheap, right? Using USPS in the States is so cheap. So I sent it there. Let's have a look at this first book. This is Tomb of Dracula. I will keep this... And we'll keep these grades a secret while we look at the books. But off-white to white pages, 1976. This is a great book. This has got a funny story. But we can see Marv's signature in there. I'll get some close-up shots of this. Clean book. Looks great. There is a few spine ticks. There is some rubbing on the spine on the front and a bit of a dig in the corner. It came back as a 7.5. That's a solid grade for a book from 1976. And one that's signed. Blade, Hannibal King, I believe. This might be first appearance of Deacon Frost. Although it doesn't say it on here. But dope book. Great book. So what happened when I got to the border? I had the 2 CGC boxes. I had an eBay box. And I also had a tube from Sideshow, which I'll do another video about this one because this is awesome. So I threw the tube in the back seat. I had the boxes on the seat. I got up to the window and started talking to the border agent, and she was so, I don't know. It's hard to understand if you don't know anything about comics or grading. Trying to explain that process to somebody and what's going on was kind of complicated. So I got to the window. She started asking me questions. Said, you know, the eBay box I purchased. The other 2 boxes with the books in them, these are my books to begin with. So if you're a Canadian resident bringing something across the border, if it's your goods already, there's no charge, right? So these books were mine already. I sent them down. Coming back across the border, if they ship it across, CGC, CBCS, PGX, they all include a note saying Canadian goods being returned to the owner. So then there's no border charges. So I was trying to explain to her, these are my books. I sent them down. I got them signed. I got them graded. They sent them back. And then the conversation became, why would you do that? And does it improve the value of the book? Which is entirely possible, right? Like you send a book to CGC. Graded books are always worth more than raw books. So the conversation became, you know, what's the new value of these books? And she was so confused. She was writing everything down as we were talking that I got sent inside, which is usually bad news, right? They're pulling you inside to actually do a full inspection. So I get inside. I start talking to the guys, and he's also kind of confused. And one of the other border agents was walking by, and he turned to him and was like, hey, do you know anything about this stuff? And the guy, this book was out. I had this as my example. This guy walked by and went, what an awesome book. Yeah, I used to collect comics. That book's amazing. That's awesome. So I got handed off to that second agent, and he was drooling over this book. This was the one that I had out, and then he started asking, you know, what else do you got? right? But he was drooling over this. He's like, that's awesome. Blade, Dracula. And then, I mean, he knew about comics, but not about grading. So I was explaining the yellow label, and then he's like, oh my God, it's signed. It's signed by Marv Wolfman. So I actually had to point out the signature to him and everything. He was literally drooling over this book. It was good, right? Like, that was a good sign for me. Well, he was looking at this book and talking to me. The other agent, the first agent, had taken my car keys and gone out to my car. You know, they're doing an inspection to see if you're hiding anything. At which point I remembered this was in the back seat. You know, something that I had bought in the States and was shipped to me. And because the girl at the window, we were getting so flustered, we didn't even get to me saying that I had this. Like, totally slipped my mind that I had this in the back seat. So he came in, and luckily, you know, 5 minutes before he came back in, I said to the other agent, oh shit, I totally forgot I have this in the back seat. Like, I should have told the agent at the window, but I didn't. But I have it. Like, I just want to let you know I have it. It was $100 that I paid for it. So then the conversation got more complicated, and I had to start pulling out other books. So, next book I pulled out, Fantastic Four. There's nothing major or key about this book, but it's got this really dope Galactus cover, right? Like, Fantastic Four and the cosmic stuff they do in the Fantastic Four is always fun. This book, I cleaned it as good as I could. I pressed it. Everything is nice and flat. Does it say? I have to look at. Yeah, off-white to white pages. But the cover is in great shape. He signed it with the silver pen, matching that cosmic. I got the custom label. It came back as an 8.5. So I put this on the table and I went, wow, that's awesome. And the guy who was into comics, same thing. Oh my God, that's awesome. Look at that, Galactus, Fantastic Four. Great. Like, whenever I pulled out one of the books, it would sidetrack our conversation about, you know, what are these things now worth? Why are you grading your books? Like, what are you doing? So trying to explain that I'm grading these for my personal collection. I'm not grading them to sell them. Right, so any improvement in value really makes no difference because I'm not selling it. So trying to make the case for that was, again, kind of difficult because the first agent couldn't understand why you're spending money on these books and potentially losing money, right? Like, these signings were $75 for the signature and the grading, right? And then you're paying shipping. But the actual value of this book in an 8.5, you know, not a yellow label, but the universal label, is like $50, right? So, you know, the raw copy, I'm not into this for anything more than, we'll say $5 plus 75, $80 I'm into this, and the blue label in an 8.5 is worth $50. So the guy trying to explain that was real difficult, why I wanted this. Meanwhile, the other guy standing behind him going, oh yeah, that's awesome, that's great. So it's kind of a funny experience. The one agent is trying to do his job and figure out, do I owe taxes on this stuff? Do I owe the money? Also, am I caught in a lie? Am I caught trying to sneak this across the border? Which comes with huge penalties if you get caught sneaking something across the border. So again, I had to pull out the other book. And this was the one, I guess, maybe sealed the deal that they understood. These are staying in my personal collection. I don't own a comic book store. I'm not a reseller, right? I had to tell them. They did ask, what do you do for a living? And I had to tell them what I do for a living. I had to show them, you know, some proof of my ID and what I do for work and stuff like that. So I'm not a comic shop. I'm not a reseller. So this is the last book I pulled out. Crisis, Infinite Earth, number 7. Classic cover, right? This is a classic Perez cover. And I got it with the Perez label. And this was my explanation to the guy, especially, you know, the guy who's into comics. He understood right away. Like, these classic guys, these legends, are getting older. They're getting sick. You know, we all know Perez recently, so I had to get the Perez label on here. Oh, and they actually do it on the front and the back. That's awesome. So once I explained that, that's when they finally got it. Like, oh, you're actually doing this because you love the hobby. Like, yeah, of course. And then I saw the grade. 9.4, and I was so stoked. Like, in the middle of our conversation, trying to defend myself and, you know, the accidentally not telling them about the other thing, having these books that are mine I sent down and are coming back with, you know, improved value. You know, explain to them that I got this because, you know, I'm sending one book down because these guys are getting older. I want their signatures. I have, like, the wall is all yellow labels, right? Like, I love having their signatures. And when I explained that, that's when I finally got them. They're like, oh, I get it. Cool. So, look at these dope-ass books. 9.4. That's an amazing grade. This is a book, you know, I can see one spine tick, and that's basically what took it down. Otherwise, this book is clean. Clean, clean, clean. I picked this up from my LCS for, I don't know, $15 or something like that. Because I knew I was doing this signing. I figured if I'm sending one book down, I might as well send a few, right? Some classic covers, some books that I like, just to have these in my collection. And I couldn't be happier. I was so stressed at the border. Like, this was the most stressful comic book, you know, border crossing I've ever done. If you're crossing the border and you get caught and they think you're doing something deceptive, they confiscate everything. It's all gone. Like, it's not yours anymore. So, my 3 CGC books, my Bill Sienkiewicz painting, and the book that I bought from eBay, which is an Avengers key. Not a cheap book, not an expensive book, but a key book. All that's gone. They take it. I have a special pass for crossing the border. It's called the Nexus Pass. It lets you basically skip the lines. It's a joint venture. You have to apply for it with the Canadian and US government, and both of them have to approve you. There's a process to go through. So they confiscate all your stuff and they take your pass. You are no longer a Nexus member. You're no longer allowed that border crossing privilege. So it's a big deal if they think that you're stealing or doing something deceptive or trying to sneak something across the border. So I almost got burned because we got so caught up talking about these books, trying to figure out, are these mine? Is there improved value? Am I turning around and selling these books? Have I crossed the threshold for value crossing the border? That I totally forgot to mention my poster, and it almost screwed me over. These books would have been gone, like that part of my collection would have been gone. So, super stressful crossing the border, but also amazing books. Like, I couldn't be happier. These grades are all great, right? For some old books. I think this one's the oldest. It's 76, 79, 85? Yeah, 85. Like, awesome books from a great writer, right? A great part of Marvel Comics and DC Comics history. I'm so stoked about this. Leave me a comment below and let me know, what do you think about crossing the border to get this stuff? Like, I never thought twice about it before, but it's starting to feel like it's kind of risky. Especially, you know, when they could ding you. Luckily, the guy believed me that I wasn't trying to be deceptive. He said, you know, this whole thing was so complicated, and I can see it on her note, right? That first girl in the booth, she was making notes, and her notes were all over the place, apparently. He was like, yeah, I can see this was complicated, and you, honestly, I think you just forgot about your poster. I said, yeah, like, absolutely. I wasn't trying to get one by. I just totally forgot that was back there because we were so focused on these books and trying to explain what the hell this is. So, got lucky crossing the border, got lucky with these books. This stuff's going on the wall. This stuff is so great. Sorry, you know, a lot of stuff from these videos end up on eBay or in Facebook auctions or whatever, but not these. These are staying. These are my books. So, there you have it. Almost having your books confiscated crossing the border. Be careful with your CGC books. Leave a comment below, let me know what do you think, and like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll catch you in the next video.